Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the final session in the Innovation Zone. How exciting is that? And we have drawn the biggest crowd, so we are doing very well, guys. Thank you for staying loyal to this zone as opposed to the others. But to end the day, we've dived deeply into a number of different topics that you guys, the audience, have requested over the last year. So our final subject of the day is all around innovation, creativity, and programmatic. Now, to lead us down that path, to give us the key insights, the key trends, we have an amazing panel. And to lead that panel, we have Jax Quantrell, who is the global CRO for Triplelift. She will then take over and introduce the rest of the panel. Off we go. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much. So we wanted to kick off the last panel today to have a great discussion about the intersection in advertising between creativity and innovation. And to kick things off, I'm Jax Quantrell, Global CRO at Triplelift. Many of you in this room haven't heard of us. We're everywhere but LATAM, but we're working tirelessly to make our way into LATAM. We're basically in-feed native solutions run programmatically. So all the cool things you can do with premium publishers today, but making it seamless and transacted through your DSP. And then I'll kick things over to Carla.
Thank you. Well, first your water. Hi, this is Carla Gonzalez. I'm working at Heineken Mexico. I hope that everybody knows Heineken. If not, I'm in a huge problem. I'm the head of media and digital acceleration in Mexico, for Mexico. I'm leading all the media team, and actually I'm leading the digital acceleration unit, that it's a team, that it's a multifunctional team, that it's between a lot of areas on which we know how to accelerate digital among the company in Mexico.
Great. So my name is Santiago Darmondale. I'm the COO for Retargeting. We are a full-stack data solution company based in Buenos Aires, but we work with all of the countries in Latin America and recently in the US as well in the Hispanic market. Basically, we operate and developed DMP that we use to collect data. We have our data exchange and onboarding platform and many different products that if you find me later and you have some more questions, I can talk about.
So I'm Julia Dubois, and I lead the supply evangelism team in AppNexus. I'm not sure if it's also such great known as Heineken, but for sure some people in the room can relate to our company. We are an ad tech company, and our team, what we do is that we work with brands to help them achieve their goals through programmatic advertising. So super glad to be here.
Wonderful. So to kick things off, we thought we would ask Carla a great two-part question. The first question, how are brands like Heineken using digital differently today than they were 2 years ago?
Okay, I think that everything. I think that we need to evolve, and every time we're hearing in the different conferences that digital is evolving, digital is different, and it is. We need to be part of this trend, and we need to change every day. I think that we are living on a complex world in which we have a lot of platforms, a lot of technology, a lot of automatization. Everything is annoying, right? I feel sometimes where do I need to start, right? So in this complex world, I think that the most important thing is that we need to make personalization at scale. And this is some of the difference that we are driving our strategies from 2 years ago. And it's not just about making different strategies and specific messages. We need to change our mindset in terms of consumer, in terms of targets, and start talking about personas. I think that is the way that we are changing our minds. And all this thing is changing, and it puts more challenges for us as marketeers, as companies in the path. The first one is that the mindset that we have in the company. As you know, there are a lot of companies where digital is just in the media team or in the marketing team, but it's not enough. I think that if the company do not feel digital from inside, it's very difficult that you make a digital acceleration or transformation in your companies. And that's something that what I'm living right now, leading this team that I already said to you. And it's important that the company, the leaders, really understand how to deal with it. The other challenge that I think that we are facing is about the structures and capabilities that we need to acquire in our teams. Because most of the time we think that we need people that are really techies and really understand digital, but it's more like that. I think that the people need to analyze better, to really understand data, because with that, we can empower people and we really drive our business objectives. And finally, the marketing technology, that's another challenge. I think, as I said before, there are a lot of things, technologies around, and sometimes you don't know where to start. So I think that as marketers, what is different from the past is that we need to go back a little bit and start thinking, what do I need from these kind of platforms and technologies? And then you start deciding what to do and what technology to acquire. So mainly those are the differences that I see from 2 years ago to from today.
So the second part, which I think most of us are sitting in the room today to hear about, is where do you see it going with innovation and creativity via programmatic?
Well, actually, I'm a big fan of programmatic, I need to say. I think that I think programmatic allows us to really innovate and create different things in terms of technology and data. First of all, data, because we are always talking about understanding the consumer, and that's fine. We need to understand it, but the most important thing is how we connect these first, second, third-party data and start building these personas for our marketing strategies and messages. And that's where programmatic can help us to really innovate in that sense. And the other thing is about technology, how we connect different channels, because programmatic, it's not just about digital. It's how we have all this media buying in other channels, such as out of home, TV, and I'm pretty sure that in the future we'll be connecting everything via programmatic. So honestly, I really think that programmatic will drive in data and in technology a lot of innovation and creativity that will bring us a lot of experiences, better experiences for consumers. But it's important to talk about it, but there's a part that us as advertisers we need to take care of, and it's transparency. I think that the industry, we have been discussing a lot in terms of transparency, and we need to push back a lot the vendors, the agencies, to really open it. Because years ago, they were like a black box there, and nobody knows how it works, nobody knows how anything, right? So as advertisers, I think that programmatic, it's very fancy, and you can do a lot of things, but there's the other part on which you really need to be aware of how to use it in order to be transparent and open with your partners. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anything, Santiago, you want to add to that?
Yeah, on the data space, and that's super interesting. When it comes to Latin America, what I see a lot is not only we have to think about the future, but I see it in a way that we live in the past a bit compared to the US and Europe. So when you see these cases of companies using probably Heineken in the US or in Europe, you're using data at a different scale. And so that's, I think, something we have to catch up to in the market. Not just brands, but technology companies and everyone else in the space have to get to that level that I don't think we're in yet. And that's something that's going to take some time, probably.
Yeah, and I will also touch on the transparency piece, because we as a supply, in this area of supply, if there's no transparency, it's very negative for the industry as a whole. It's not only of course, the publisher, the business of the publisher, but also for the users, because they get bad ads, they get bad user experience, and then there's a graph, a very well-known graph, where you see $1 from the buyer, and then all the value chain goes, and then it's almost nothing for the publisher, and then if the publisher is not getting the fair share, they are not going to be able to reinvest that into great content so that the users can be more engaged and they can get the content for free. So I think that transparency, and we can expand much more on that, it's super key for AppNexus and for like to thrive, for the industry to thrive. That is key, and there is a piece of information that we are working for full transparency on fees and things like that. So there's like a strong footprint on how to really tackling transparency and making it happen, in everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one last thing I'd like to add to that. We've seen two huge trends, the two things that you've hit on globally this past year. First with GDPR and really thinking about how do we let users decide what type of data that they want to make available and put them first. And that's helping to combat the whole concept of ad blocking. So if we're not being user-centric, if we're not thinking about making this a great environment, we're not going to have platforms, free platforms for people to advertise on. So, okay, so that's a perfect segue to you, Julia.
Yeah.
What's the biggest change from supply perspective and how it's impacted advertisers that you've seen?
Yeah, so going back to the challenges that Carla was mentioning, we believe, I think we all agree that internet should be a place for like enhance your knowledge, to connect people between each other, and for sure to foster creativity. But right now, with all the fake news, the hate speech, the ad fraud, it's like getting in the middle of real creativity and getting in the middle for brands to really connect with their users. So what we believe is the biggest change, and that we believe that this change could solve these problems, is, for instance, for sure technology, but things like brand safety, where the buyers can really like apply filters to their campaigns, so they are sure that their ads appear on content that they feel like they should be there, right? And also from a supply perspective, there is something called supply path optimization, because right now there is an inefficiency on the supply chain, and this technology enables the buyer to see, is this like the most efficient path for my for my buy to go from buying to selling? And of course, something super important is viewability. That more and more the publishers need to think on a programmatic way and ensure that their ads are viewable, because that sounds basic, but we still need to run that road. And for sure, like something that we are also working on is like transact on guaranteed views. Like that's something like you will pay for the ads that were actually seen. So I think with all those combination of how technology can help the buyers, after you decide which is the technology and how to partner with who and everything, that's the biggest change that we see. And of course, in terms of creativity itself, I would say two things, like programmatic creative, we were discussing that. Of course, there has to be a strategy and a lot of thinking behind, but the technology enables you to create 100 or thousands creatives, so you have like multiple combinations, so you can use programmatic to really see what is the creative that it will impact best to your audience. And of course, a subset of that, which is DCO, which I was talking with many like agencies, and maybe in LATAM we are in DC, not yet in DCO, like it's dynamic creative, and then it's dynamic creative optimization, how you optimize the creative based on the performance. So I think that of course data is key. We all know that, right?
Yeah, perfect, Santiago.
Yeah.
I think that's a great segue to you.
Yeah. No, so on the creative part, what is interesting to me when it comes to programmatic is the thing that programmatic allows you to do as a brand is take back your data and actually own it and at scale. Because before you used to buy through someone else and you couldn't really tag on a person-by-person basis. That's something you can do now at scale, and I think that changes everything. You can't see the world the same way as you did before. You need to evolve that. And that's something a lot of brands are doing, but a lot of brands are not. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. And the thing about DCO is when you can really get all the data about not just which creative as a whole performed better, because one thing that I think creative people at agencies, for example, get scared about is if the technology is going to create all the creatives by itself, what am I going to be doing? So with creative, what you can see is, as you do with websites, which color performs better, so you get more insights that then you can use on the creative side to actually create, on a creative side to actually do the ad on a human level. And I think that's super powerful as well. Not many brands are doing it, and I think that's going to be the next big thing.
I think what's interesting here is putting those three pieces together and thinking about, okay, how do we help publishers find the right places on their website that have the great viewability, opening up what I'd love to say in-feed native placements that are more user-centric, that allow the actual advertiser and agency to have more creativity in what they're building, and then lastly, using real-time data and decisioning with programmatic to be able to change those placements real-time to be able to get in front of the right audience, the right message that they want to see that they're not going to block.
Exactly.
So next question, Santiago.
Okay.
How is the discussion around transparency evolving with programmatic and data and the quality of buying and inventory?
That's interesting. So when it comes to programmatic, I think it's you have ads TXT, all the different things that are happening to make sure that you're buying on the right publisher. When it comes to data, it's the same discussion, right? Because you're buying data that you don't really know what is behind, and not only where it came from, but which models were run against it. How do you decide if someone has an affinity for a certain subject or is in market for a certain product? And there's a lot of black boxes out there when it comes to data. So I think more and more advertisers want to have control over which data they're buying and how that data is sourced and how it's processed, not only because of GDPR, but also because they want to have more control over what they're buying. There's a lot of companies out there that are not really transparent about that. And I think that's something that, because of GDPR and because of advertisers becoming more aware of that, that's something that's dying out, and I think that's a great thing.
And yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I think that for that, the challenge for the companies is how we get the data, first-party data, and not just release all the responsibility on other companies, because that's where we have no transparency, and we cannot build our own data. Other thing that I think that I want to share with you is, for example, in the category that I work, that it's beer, you cannot give a message for the people that it's not legal drinking age. So how this data helps you to really secure that you are targeting the right person at the right moment. So the first-party data, it's the only that really ensures this kind of things. So the companies needs to focus or drive more the strategies in how to gather all the information, right? Even that it's expensive, but at the end, I think that it will bring more results than just having second or third-party data.
That's true. When it comes to drinking age, and just one quick thing, we have not only in beer and alcoholic, but also in different types of products, you can't advertise to minors, of course. And it's interesting because that, in a way, stops you from creating the creative in a way that will reach everyone, but just in a light way, so you're not sure that the minor's not really seeing it, so you have to play it safe. And if you can do really good targeting, that means that you can change the creative to something more aggressive, for example. It's the same with banking. They're spending a lot of money on leads that are not converting, so they have to be really safe on how they're doing it. But if you know that the person seeing it is the person that can actually buy your product, that changes the way that you can talk to that customer. So that's interesting on the creative side.
Yeah, and I would add that we first saw how the value set changed with programmatic, and let me know if you agree. Like, it changed from the seller saying, this is my inventory, this is how much it costs, and then with programmatic, it shifted to the buyers, and now the buyer is saying, okay, how much this inventory is valuable for my strategy because it's my audience. So the control went back to the buyers, but also with all this transparency and the GDPR, etc., we are also seeing that for the good premium publishers, this is good news, and they are taking back also some a standpoint on there, because now they are more valuable than before. At the beginning, like maybe programmatic was, as you were saying, like a black box, and no one knew what was happening, probably low price, etc. But with all these things that we are discussing, it's great news for the publishers, because the ones that are really like investing and doing their job on creating amazing content and premium and safe content, all these things are good news for them.
And to your point, it just is opening up what you can buy now in Latin America and LATAM, because that's no longer a cheap option with programmatic. It's the fact that now video, now rising star or high impact placements are now being offered up, because the pendulum is swung back and showing that you're willing to pay for that content. You're willing to pay the same CPMs, but you want the automation, you want the real-time decision you get with RTB protocol and with programmatic.
Yeah, and even it got smarter. Like we used to run homepage takeovers, right? Like 100% share of voice. Perfect, amazing. But now, what if you can do 100% takeover, but for your audience? Like there is less waste, of course, efficiency and everything, but it's like the same spirit of what we had with direct before programmatic, but now like more intelligent in a way. So as she was saying, like we have video, native, mobile, well, of course, rich media, large, high impact format. So like we are already beyond the programmatic tipping point. Like we used to say, oh, programmatic is a new thing. Well, we are already like past that point, and now is how we go to the roots and enable the real marketing and creativity and things that are like it has the wow effect for the brands in digital. That we need that, right? But much more intelligent.
Absolutely. So we're just about out of time, but I'd like to open this up to questions from the audience. Anyone have any questions?
Well, I have one.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
There is a trend that announcers or clients are building their own capability for programmatic. What do you think about that? It's going to, because we know that P&G has problems and he's going back with their agencies. Their agencies are rolling, I think. But what is your point of view about that?
Yeah, so we've seen some like success stories with programmatic in-house, but it has to be like, yeah, I know, but it has to be those companies that are probably super performance-oriented, that they know to the detail, like every like transaction, how they need to work. So, but it's very few cases in which they can do it like in-house. Like we see that it seemed to be a trend, but right now, like with the like reinvention of the agencies, with the trading desk, they are having the skill, because it's not so easy to find the like people
Technology.
that to fund the technology and have people that can pull the right levers. And so I think it's like the agencies are doing a great job in accompanying this acceleration of programmatic. So I think it's a specific for specific clients, and P&G, of course, it moved, like they're trying to move the market, right? And they need to say, okay, I need full transparency. I need a lot of things that they are in a position to ask for, but we still see a lot coming through the agencies.
Yeah, on our side, at least when it comes to data, what we see a lot is most of the brands don't really understand programmatic or data or anything. So for them to first reaction be in-housing is crazy. First understand what you're talking about. Then you can go to your agency and demand more things. And then if it doesn't work, in-house. And also for most of these things, you need economies of scale. So it's really hard for one brand, really doesn't matter how big you are, to do everything. On a team, on the technology, you need to have a lot of different components that are just too much for one brand to do by itself. So I think that was a trend, I think a couple of years ago, that some brands are doing it. Unilever is doing it in different markets when it comes to creative. And I think that's also on the agencies on many points, because they've made a lot of money from those clients, and some of those clients were not happy with them. And I think that's going to be a trend that probably will slow a bit down coming forward.
Just to give a global perspective, I've seen the trend in North America go from 4 years ago of a lot of brands taking programmatic in-house, but it would be just programmatic. And what I've seen in the past year or two is it's kind of shifted a new direction where there are pieces of their business that they would prefer to hold on into internally, but they still fully leverage their agency and their DSP partners. So in some cases, it might be strategy. Or in the case of bringing programmatic in-house, it was because they wanted to hold on to their own data, but they still wanted to work with their agency for strategy and for creative. We're seeing similar trends in Europe where you have isolated cases, but ultimately no one's solely getting rid of their agency. They're still going back for certain elements, and in some cases we've seen them go completely back. So a brand that at one point 2 years ago brought it in-house were not successful, and they've now gone back to their agency. So I think it's just important that we all embrace transparency.
Yes.
And we're working together and understanding what are the objectives that that specific brand is looking for, and how can we be the best partner from an agency perspective.
And a super quick comment, we surveyed the region because we roadshow the region, and the survey said that 80% of the buyers, their main concern is transparency. So it's huge. We have a big thing to do here, because if not, we are in problems.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time, and
Wonderful.
enjoy drinks.
What a great informative way to end the day in this room.